Welcome to another episode of Mind Brain Movies. I am your Sherpa into the Mind Brain Hope. And as usual, I have my co host, Dr. Gremlin, here with me today. But I am super excited today to also have another guest on. Uh, we fell in love with each other over torturing Dr. Gremlin. And so I had to bring them on today. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Dylan Richard, or the Punk Psychologist. And yeah, we totally enjoyed um, making Dr. Gremlin watch Terrifier 2.
I thought you were a mega horror fan because of that. And
No,
then I was and then it turns out you're not. And I was like, you just did this for me to make fun of me? And
well, yes, I'm not a horror
yeah.
fan, but I'm a sadist. There's a difference.
Okay. Okay. I'll keep that in mind for later. All right.
So you just have to find out Dylan's very deep, dark, rooted fears and just go from there.
I bet it's spiders. It should be spiders for everyone. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, my pet spider just passed away recently. I'm very sad.
Oh, sorry.
She was very
For
old.
you.
She like
How long do they live?
like 2 to 3 years, and she was on the end of 3, so she was an old lady. But anyways, we're not here to be sad and talk about my sadness of my spiders. So today we're talking about Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I think it's actually very appropriate on several fronts. But little fun fact for you guys out there: it is actually the 50th anniversary of Rocky Horror Picture Show this year.
When exactly?
Wow.
I'm sorry, you
Details,
said
woman, details.
it released. When was the original release date? Let me see. I just know it's 25 years and got really excited. Or 50 years and I got really excited. The release date. It was August 14th, 1975.
August. That's a random month to drop such a historic movie.
I also
It
wouldn't have
started out
guessed.
as a stage production.
Yeah.
So how long? Well, are we is the 50 years? This is 50 years since the movie, right? Not
50
since
years for the movie.
yeah,
The
yeah.
stage production was done 2 years beforehand.
Oh, okay.
That's not even a long
I
time
was
to
like,
be
is it
in stage
Shakespeare
production,
old?
too.
Yeah.
And for it to move to movie afterwards, yeah.
Yeah. So
Something special on that day.
there you go. So with that, it actually had a very shitty release when it first came out, and the whole background is they still
Is this
wanted
weird?
yeah, because it's weird. They still wanted to show it, so they made it midnight screenings. And it launched with midnight screenings, and then that's when our shadow performances came out, and it's like the longest running movie in theaters, consistently. It's crazy. It's literally the definition of cult classic.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know there are some cult classic movies that are so bad they're good. But some movies that are really, really good. Which one does this one fall into? Because like
Oh
I
no, this
said,
is good.
it's kind of weird.
No,
Why is
A
that
lot
even a
weird.
question?
an example of so bad it's good would be like The Room.
Nah, I don't know. Can you
I
name
know
a
you.
movie?
I've heard
I'll
it.
be here for 3 hours. We'll be like, how about this one? Have you seen this one? No.
Velocipaster.
I've not seen that one. But I mean, that in itself gives me an idea of what it's like.
Yeah.
Why couldn't we have watched
Llamageddon?
that one?
Llamageddon.
Why can't you guys torture
Actually-
me with these movies?
You picked today's episode, Liz, actually, because you're like, oh, I've seen this one. It's funny.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the reason why I ended up watching it, it's because um our Discord group actually selected it for us to do like as a movie night sort of, and that's sort of like why I watched it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen it.
So that was the first time you ever watched it.
Yeah, that was last year, I think. So like I don't know, probably like 6-7 months ago.
It was around Halloween, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah, because I think I because I chose like specific movies that I thought were like people like movies that people will like, but they were still kind of like Halloweenish. And that's the one that ended up winning.
Gotcha.
That was, I could just imagine you're just like
But
avoiding all horror movies. You're like, no horror, just
Pretty much.
fun Halloween.
Pretty much.
yeah. I mean, it was like the Nightmare Before Christmas. It was wait, I forgot what other ones were in there. But like, that movie and then this movie, not really scary.
Dylan,
Was it
what
meant to
was
be scary?
Dylan, what was your first experience with Rocky Horror?
So, I actually have a cool story. So I was in a like first
You didn't like my
responder
story about
class.
how I saw it like 7
Liz,
years.
shut the fuck up.
No, I feel insulted. They just insulted me by saying that my story was not funny.
Let him speak.
Go on.
Um,
I'll behave.
So I was in a first responder class in my high school that they randomly offered a first responder class. Like you got like certified as a first responder. Anyway, the teacher was like my queer safe space in high school. And I one time, I think I was like singing a song from Glee. And she was like, oh, you know Rocky Horror. And I was like, well, I've seen the Glee version. And she was like, mandatory watching. And she brought me the Rocky Horror like DVD because I had never seen it. And so like I watched it and I fell in love with it. And I always look
Yeah.
back fondly because like I see her as like my like queer safe like haven at the school I was at.
Aw.
Um, and so that was my first time was in high school, and I have yet to see a like the like what do they call it, the shadow production ones. Like I've yet to see one of those. Um, every single time it comes like
No.
every time the like Halloween season comes around and I see them, it's always just viewings. And like, I really want to see like live people doing things rather than just like a theater full of people. So I've yet to see one.
Okay, that's an adorable story, and I love that. But also very ashamed that you haven't seen the Shadow production.
I know.
Um, I've seen Shadow Productions like so many times, and actually, a really good way to do it is at horror conventions. Certain ones they have midnight screenings of Rocky Horror, and they do have Shadow Productions, and they'll like hand out stuff.
Some of us don't
Ooh.
enjoy horror hope. Next idea, please.
If you go
You know
to,
how
you
scary it
can.
would be for us to go into like that. Well, actually, I think not necessarily that it would be scary to go to like a horror con, but I'll just be like so confused. I'm like, I have no idea who any of these people are.
I was gonna say we are the sweetest people on the planet. The
Not
horror con
that.
people.
No, it's just like, because I think that's one of the things that I like about cons in general is that being able to be like, oh, I love your cosplay, or like I can identify where it's from and we can geek out about the same things. I'm just gonna be standing there awkwardly being like, I don't know anything about anything.
Well, I'm sure
And
you
then
know some
people
of
will be weird.
the iconic, and now you know Art the Clown, so you can point out
Yes.
all the arts.
Bro, every
Yeah.
time I open like my Instagram, because I have a picture of him for like the post for like the live stream that we did, right? Every time I open it, his face just pops up, and I'm like, can I just delete this? Like, should I just delete this?
No.
I
Soon your
should.
algorithm will be taken over. It's gonna be
No.
great. So, I love the idea of talking about Rocky Horror today because, especially in today's climate, with the uh the Cheeto in office, uh we need a safe space for, well, I don't know about you, Liz, but at least for me and Dylan's community, we need a safe space. Um,
I am as straight and normal as they come, I think. but
I
I
don't.
but
I wouldn't say normal, but you are straight.
however, I mean, part of the reason why I created Psychology for Geeks is because I understand the need to have a safe space for you to be yourself and be comfortable with it, right? Which is why I wanted to, like, really, I'm just here as a prop because I have no idea about this movie. I just want to ask you guys questions to see if I will understand the movie a little bit more. I just want to be nosy
Of
because I
course.
have like
Okay.
no input. Wait. But can I ask a question though before we move on to like interesting topics? Well, not
Before I
interesting, but
actually
important.
talk, before
Yes,
I actually finish the rest of my sentence, yes.
yes. What is the one thing that you really enjoy? Well, two questions. One thing that you really enjoy about the movie, and then the other one, why did you think other people should watch this movie?
Mhm.
So why I enjoy it,
Hmm.
one is I am the weird, like, legitimately, I am the weird nerdy goth chick who jams out to show tunes. Like, don't get me wrong, I listen to like Rammstein and like all them, but like I I love my show tunes, not gonna lie. And
So it's more like about the music for you, like
a
music
little bit. I mean,
appreciation.
the music component's a big part of it, yes. And then, but honestly, like I tell people to watch this movie because I'm like, if you want to step outside of the norm, and also if you're a Tim Curry fan, it's not complete without watching this because Tim Curry like owned this role. He's like, it's a great film. This is an amazing film. Like he owned Dr. Frankenfurter like forever. He was like, no, this is my baby.
Oh
He
yeah.
was like, no, mine. And Tim Curry not only does like movies and voice acting and TV, but he also does stage plays and everything. And he's like Rocky Horror is like one of his favorites. So
Mr. Punk.
I'm trying to I'm trying to think. I think the main reason I think for me is that it was the
Oh, sorry,
first
Dr. Punk.
it was the first
Sorry.
like really big like queer representation that was also alt for me. So
yes.
kind of very similar I think to Hope, where it was like all I saw was like, like theater gays and like all this stuff, and it was like, wait, I
Hmm.
can actually be like alternative and weird and queer.
Hmm.
Even though like Tim Curry, I don't think he's queer, right? I don't know. I feel
No.
like he's
Deep
fam
inside.
anyway. Um, he's
But
even if he's part of the family now at this point.
yeah, he's been adopted. It's fine.
Yeah. But like so that was really like that's why I recommend it to everyone who like wants to understand a little bit more about just like queer culture in general, is because it's so out there and it's also camp in a like really cool way that explains like camp in the queer community too. So,
It's also very sex positive as
oh yeah.
well. And it's like and I love that because especially in a time so the crazy backwards thing about the US compared to like Europe is we'll show murder and gore and violence all day long, don't care. But like flash a boob or anything or talk about sex and it's like, oh gosh, oh my stars
Straight
and
to
pearls.
jail.
And then but it's actually the opposite in Europe. Like the violence and everything is like, oh gosh, but like the sex they're like, oh yeah, that's a Tuesday, you know. Like so to have something very sex positive, especially back in the 70s, was amazing.
Well, I mean, partially totally understand like why it didn't do as well, but also kind of did well, given the time that it released. But even then, like it's so old. But I watched it last year. Even then, I was still like, I have no idea why I like this movie, but I like it. You know, like it was like
Yes.
it was kind of weird, like that, you know, the props and all those things were like, you know, like clearly not like the highest you know what is it, CG, something props or
They're
whatever, but it's
yeah.
still like, it made sense, you know,
Mhm.
like it just all fit in so well. And yeah, like I don't, again, I don't really remember anything about this movie, but I remember I liked it and I enjoyed it. And I would watch it again.
And to me, there's not a single sleeper track on the entire soundtrack. Like a lot of
Oh, no.
like musicals, I'm like, I could skip this whole thing, but like I will jam every single song on that soundtrack.
Agreed. Dude, especially when they broke Meatloaf out, I was like, "Oh, my
Oh,
baby,
yeah.
Meatloaf."
Yes. R.I.P. Meatloaf.
Meatloaf is so R.I.P. Meatloaf. Love him, but like he's iconic in movies too. I was like that Fight Club, like he just comes in and steals the show whenever he's there. I honestly think that's why um they gave Meatloaf that role because otherwise he would have stolen the rest of the movie.
Mm, I can see that.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
And
nope.
wait,
Eddie's taking too much screen time. Nope, he's stealing the camera. Go back
yeah.
to Tim.
Meanwhile, like I'm the type that like Eddie is very much my type compared to Rocky, and so it's like, wait, Frankenfurter wasn't into Eddie? Like what? Like th- what? It's his first
Yes.
creation? Like
The I was about to say Rocky is not my type either. Like, can I appreciate it? Yes. But Eddie, I'm all about Eddie.
oh yeah,
Like, let's get on that bike and go.
exactly.
Oh, glad
Yeah,
we're on the same page.
this is why I said I'm just here.
This is a learning experience for you. Take your notes, Liz.
Well, but you know what? Because I did ask you guys like why would you recommend it to someone else? And I think on top of that, I think I will add that watching it with someone who is a fan of this movie, it is better. It makes the experience better because,
Mhm.
like I said, it's watching it for the first time. I mean, it's already like really weird. There's so much going on, right? But then I had someone who was being like, "Oh, this is my favorite part," or like, "Pay attention to this one thing," and then like it just made it more enjoyable because I knew like the little things that would happen that made it like
Yes.
interesting or whatever, you know. And whenever I had questions about like, "Wait, what happened?" I had someone to ask. So I highly recommend watching it with someone who is a fan, just in
Agreed.
general, like any movie. Yeah.
The first shadow performance I went to, I went with a friend who had already been to like 2 or 3 shadow performances. So they like kind of like because they'll hand out props and things like that to go along with the movie as well. And whenever something would happen, like there was a newspaper part, my friend was like, "Oh, get the newspaper," and I was like, "Oh, we're copying Janet, okay." Like when they're out in the rain and she like uses the newspaper, and so it's like, "Okay, cool, got it, and it's so much fun. And this is very a unique movie, and I also love that because with the shadow performances, it does bring people together and it gives that sense of community, especially like when you're all doing like that. We're all basically making fun of the movie, even though we love the movie. Um, like I was watching these clips of like a documentary about it, and the reason shadow performances started is because people who had seen the movie a million times, they would literally see it like every midnight screening. Um, they would finally start like catcalling the screen and like yelling stuff. And there's one part where Janet with the newspaper, and one lady goes and screams, "You're such a cheap bitch! Get an umbrella!" And then like someone else, and everyone laughed, and then someone else in the audience was like, "Next time I go, I have to one up that." And then like there's that it just made this community. It's great. It brings the queer gothy absurdness brings people together.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, that, like, watching it with someone, like, at first, if you go into the movie way too serious, you might be a little thrown off by, like, "I wanna
Mhm.
laugh at this," or "I wanna make fun of it because it looks cheesy," and then you're watching it with someone who loves it, and they're laughing, and they're making fun of it. It's like, "Oh, okay, this is, like, intentionally campy to be
Yes.
fun and lighthearted." So I think that is a fun. Yeah, I really want to go to a shadow performance with someone who knows, because otherwise I will be so lost.
All
Excuse
right,
me,
so
normal person here who has no idea. What's a shadow performance?
basically there's people who dress up as the actors. There's like a cast who dresses up the same as the actors in the movie, and they'll
Mm.
kind of like perform major parts along with the movie. So like big things
Ah.
would be like a lot of the musical performances, the shadow cast will get up and perform the musical performance along with the movie. And then they'll help guide you through like whenever you're supposed to do like use your props and things. So be like, okay guys, like um here's the toast part, and then like there's like actual pieces of toast and we all threw it at the screen and and
Mm.
things like that. So
Okay, okay. I was thinking that it was like just like a play of it.
no, it's a hybrid play
Mm.
kind of because it's the
Mm.
movie, but they're also acting in front of the because it's like the screen and then right in front of the screen they'll be like acting.
Mm.
So it's like
Okay.
it's like a duel, and but it also makes it very interactive with the audience because then they get the audience to participate, and it's something really really unique. And I highly recommend anybody who has seen Rocky Horror just wants a different unique experience, go find out when they're doing a shadow performance and go to it.
It's
It's
also an
fantastic.
excuse to like wear fishnets and go out, from what I've seen, because people dress up and like as characters.
Wait,
You
And
should
then,
do that anyway.
I was about to say you don't do that as is.
oh well,
Yeah.
yes, but like other people.
Well, okay, listen, listen. Can I say something? This is like not meant to be mean or anything, but I really want you to switch to pink hair again. Because I think it looks great on you. Because I keep looking at the picture, and then when we do like things live, and I'm like, oh wait, where's the pink
Well,
hair?
so that's why I have new promo pictures that I posted, because one of my clients, if you're watching this, I'm calling you out, straight up said like, "Oh, you're catfishing people," and I was like, "I mean,
You're
yeah."
catfishing people.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And also,
Um,
if you could wear the makeup you were in the picture that we use for promotions, that would be great too.
it
Because
takes
again, it looks fantastic.
that takes like an hour,
It's
and
effort. It's
it's
I
effort.
effort
It
know.
because I don't know
it
how to
Okay,
do a
looks
at
quick
least the pink
eye.
hair.
look, it looks fantastic, but it is effort. Like this is just the slap on makeup I did right before because I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go and record. Uh, and then I also have to head to work right after recording. So yay me. Uh,
And I
but
learned how to do makeup from drag queens, so I don't know like a
Ooh.
casual day eye look. It's like full on just that. And
No,
you
no,
see
no.
these
That you
one
should
well,
have
you
that every
probably don't
day.
see it, but you see these wonderful curls, that does not do well with bleach. So I was
Oh.
working with people for like a year who didn't know my hair actually curled because I was bleaching it so much.
Oh.
So like that's the
mm,
trade-off, is like my hair is like my curls are actually happy now. So that's I'm trying to figure out when to go back to pink, but I do want to, but it needs to be like
that
a
actually
Okay,
makes
healthy.
is there like a wig that you can just wear like on top of your like mug? That would be like, can somebody make this, please?
no, just
That would be really cool.
they have the dyes you can put in your hair for like the day and it washes out.
Do that.
I
Yeah.
guess. I don't know. That's so
I,
much effort. No.
yeah.
Just use my
Yeah.
brown
I mean, I
hair
Stop
for a little
understand.
harassing
bit.
Dylan. Stop
Look, how
harassing
about this?
Dylan.
How about this?
Just
Look,
saying they
if
look great
you
with pink
All right,
hair.
if you want to
you can
fund
start to say something to make her.
if you want to fund my bleach and like high quality bleaching of that, I will be so down. But that's like a couple $100 every 4 weeks. So
Yeah. So
Start a
okay,
GoFundMe right now.
now's your time to like say something that'll make her feel uncomfortable, and then to get back at her.
I mean, we're talking
No,
about Rocky
that's
Horror,
a long
so that
list.
won't take much.
I don't know why I agreed to
So
do this. If I'm just gonna be bullied by people.
because you always bully us.
Preemptive measure, man. Gotta protect myself.
Preemptive measure. All right, so little sneak peek. Dylan and I were messaging right before this, and he was like, "So what's the vibe for this show?" Because he's never been on my podcast before. We've
Right.
talked a million times, so he's never been on the podcast before. And I was like, "Oh no, we don't follow guidelines or structures. We are not rated. You know, like I always put like definitely not for kids on my YouTube videos." Like, so and then he was like, "Good, it's got to get naughty when we talk about Frankenfurters."
Yes.
So I want you to bring in your expertise, and I want you to talk about Frank because it's going to be amazing.
Well, I think one thing I'll start with is that there's like widespread controversy about the use of a term that like is pretty not like in the public eye anymore. So the term transsexual is like
Mhm.
found throughout. Um, from my understanding, I wasn't alive at the time. From my understanding, it was a huge deal for the trans community because it was like actual like potential like positive
Yes.
representation. So just to go on record and say that like only use the term transsexual if someone has told you that's how they identify and that's what they use. Um, because for some people it indicates that they've gone through some sort of medical intervention for it. That's where the original term
Mhm.
goes through. So I'll just go on record
Yes.
to say that. But I think Frankenfurter is such a both like gender icon but also sexual icon because like the way that
Yes.
Frankenfurter slipped into those rooms in the middle of the night and Brad had no no objections to
I
that.
yes, dude. Talk about conservative white male, and then he's like got his world rocked
Which
by
I mean, to
Frankenfurter, and he's
anyone with a grinder knows that that's how it goes. That is exactly how it goes. Them conservative white men are hitting us up in the middle of the night with no objections.
mhm. Yeah.
Wait. I have questions. Um, I have lots of questions and I can't think of one. Great. I think wait, what is sort of because supposedly we are more of a progressive, at least in California or like big cities or whatever. There tends to be more understanding or progressive mindsets when it comes to things. But why do you guys think it's taken so long? Because it's been 50 years now, and we still, like, a lot of people would still be scandalized by this movie and would not talk about sex in any way.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what about America? And what do we do to change it?
Well, I don't
Anarchy.
yeah,
It was Dr. Punk.
like I don't think you want me to go there because we'll get flagged as terrorists very quickly. Um I
That's why I just
I
left it
honestly
as anarchy.
yes. I think one of the biggest things is that sexual freedom represents a much bigger picture of freedom than I think a lot of people realize. Is that like when we have the ability to love and fuck and do all those things, it also represents our fighting of like multiple oppressive systems like racism and sexism and all of the things that I think it is terrifying for the people in power to really think about allowing us to just free flow and do whatever we want. Um, and so I think that's why consistently we see these ebbs and flows in like more progressive sexual views and then all of a sudden this spike decrease right back to like controlling everything because like the 1920s
Yeah.
like you were considered like a huge slut if you just showed your ankles and wore makeup like that was like a no-no and then you cut your hair and it was like
Oh, the flappers.
oh
Oh.
yeah and
Mm.
so like to then go to there and then like now like there's so many different ways that like yes we're more progressive in some ways but then we're taking back seats in other ways like technically there's still sodomy laws on the books in many states, which means that like technically any one of us could be arrested for doing something that isn't meant to create a child. And those are currently not enforceable, but it could take a swift pin to say that all of our like private lives are now at fault. So I think that's that's why it's all about control.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, so I'm for the 50th time in my life, I'm rewatching Parks and Rec, and it always makes me laugh when they're like, "Oh, according to this town statute, I still technically can't reserve this conference room without my father or husband's name," like things like that. And it's like technically it is a law. We don't follow it, but it's like mm, one little thing and it can be a law again, and it's yeah.
Did that answer your question,
Wait,
Dr.
Sorry.
what
Gremlin?
about my next part of the question? How do we like make it better?
Anarchy.
Anarchy. Well, I mean,
So
I think
like I mean like more concrete examples, like, have podcasts
well,
like this to talk about
yes.
movies.
Well, I think
Yes. Well,
What do you think I was gonna say?
like what Dylan said, we might get flagged and then the cops might show up.
Nerd! Listen, I have a
cop
nonprofit to run.
duties. I mean, I
I
do
have
think like
events that I already paid for that need to happen.
I'm sure they will
Um,
very much care about your events, Liz.
Oh yeah.
I think little
So
things,
much.
right? Like little opportunities for us to celebrate our sexualities in whatever that looks like. Having these podcasts where we openly talk about sex and don't shy away from it. And, reminding people like when one of my favorites is like when they say like, oh, the gays are just flaunting it and they're so proud, like blah, blah, blah. And your children are literal representations of your cream pie fetish. So do not talk to me about us parading like our sexualities when I have to look at your fetish every single time you're at the store. Like people don't want to
Oh my
get
gosh.
down and dirty. So
No, but I one of the things that you sent me on Instagram was like little girl was lost and then she came up to me and I was like, "Oh, let's go help find your mommy."
oh
And
yeah.
like the mother's like, "Oh, thanks for finding my daughter." And she's like, the mother looked me up and down and sighed relief. She's like, "I told her if she ever got lost, find a grandma or a goth because that's who you go to." I was like, "Oh!"
yes.
And I was like, "We need more representation like that because like I am a goth. I'm a gothy girl." And it's true, like I may not have kids of my own or ever will have kids, but like I will always put them first. Um and things like that, and like goths and animals too. Like we
Yep.
we love the weird creepy crawlies and like the people will be like, "Ew, it's gross." I'm like, "No, it's my baby." Like,
Yeah, I love the pictures. There's like a bunch of pictures of like kids walking up to punks and like touching the spikes or like touching their mohawks and things like that.
mhm.
And it always brings me so much joy of like the alt community, we really do like value taking care of children and making sure that they're safe and things like that. And like honestly, way more than some other groups that don't really care. So
Well, that goes back to also me. I've said this on many other episodes and other people's podcasts and my podcast. Like the horror community, I actually kind of stopped going to like normal Comic Cons and things like that. And I only go to horror conventions because I've had so many instances of like hatred and like ill will and just like chaos at Comic Cons, like within like the communities. But then at horror cons, like I've there's been times where like I was like in a personal bad situation and I ran out to like the middle of the con and like 50 people flocked and they're like, "We got you." And they like defended me and protected me and like brought me in. I was like, "Oh, I feel so nice and safe." You know, I just remember one time I went to a con even and I dressed up as someone. This is way 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 back when. I dressed up as like Daryl from The Walking Dead and I like had blood splatter all over me to represent like him fighting. And one of the actors, even from the show, because I went to meet someone from The Walking Dead, from the show, he like his big burly dude. He ran up. He's like, "Are you okay? I'll call someone if you need help." I was like, and I like did this and licked it. I was like, "It's chocolate, but thank you." Like,
Oh.
and he's like, "Oh, I was so worried that someone hurt you." And then I was like, "I'm in cosplay." And he looked. He's like, "Oh, you are." So like they're just like the sweetest things on the planet, and I think we need more representation like that too.
Yeah.
What do you think attracts people to like the goth or like the punk lifestyle? Because I'm sorry, again, I am uh a scaredy cat, and I was always afraid of like doing anything wrong, so I just stayed at my house. And it's not until like I became an adult that I'm like, well, that's interesting, I want to learn more. So for the people like me, what do you think, or what attracted you guys to like that lifestyle, and what keeps you there, and why should other people also join you guys?
My big thing is so I was 12 when I went to high school, and I
Damn.
um was I was homeschooled beforehand, so I was already young and knew not a single soul in high school. And I was kind of like you. I was like I dressed tomboyish but not really goth. And I had this mentor, like freshman mentor, and she was goth, and she was my world. Carrie, if you ever listen to this, you're still my world. I love you. I stalk you still. Uh, um, and she like protected me. She knew like my age, and I was like, "Can you please not tell people, I'm so young?" She's like, "I got you," and she was just like my biggest influence. And like she actually invited me to her goth group like in the mornings before school or at lunches, and I was like, they like really brought me in as a family. And then ever since then I already always liked horror and things like that, and then I was like, I can dress like this too. She's like, yeah, we can go shopping. I was like, I can do the thing. She's like, yeah, you can do the thing, you could be one of us. I was like, yay. And then I just never looked back.
So I am a emo to punk pipeline kind of person. So like I was actually emo first. Um and
I could
so
totally see that.
yeah, like what really attracted me to that was I was very emotional and I just felt so alone. And I'm I'm like a classic like My Chemical Romance, The Used, like very like sort of like hardcore emo kind
Mm.
of type. Um and I just didn't like the mainstream. And I think a lot of people actually get into it because like we're bullied for like, oh, like I don't have enough money to shop at Aeropostale or whatever. And so it's like, well, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna wear whatever. And then I started finding myself transitioning a little bit more to more of the hardcore kind of punk stuff, and then really vibing with the lyrics that go behind punk, which is why I connected
Mhm.
to emo in the first place. Um, and then started realizing that there's a bigger to me in the punk world, there's like a bigger picture in terms of like value structure and just like like there's more to it than just liking a certain type of music. Um, and that is what then I connected to. And then I learned so much of the queer history within punk. And I was like, wait, like this is exactly where I need to be. And I think it's similar. I actually went to my first goth night like a few years ago, and I was like, "Oh,
That's so exciting.
these are like my cousins." Like everybody felt it was like very much similar to like just a do it yourself like punk show. Um, and like being goth to me, oh, very similar to like those of us who are like very punk. I feel like it's inherently queer. Like every time I've gone to like a whole bunch of like
Oh, yeah.
goth hangouts, it's like everyone's a little queer, even if they're straight. There's a little queerness to it.
I think it's also I will say it's kind of fetishized to it kind of sometimes as well. I
I feel like
know.
for sorry, for women especially, uh,
Yeah, I will say
I've seen the
because
most. Yeah.
I've found with my like me and my goth girlies, like we've been kind of like fetishized, like people who I want to loop this back into Rocky Horror because like Brad and Janet were both very like straight-laced, conservative, you're normal people, but then Brad flipped switch real quick.
Yep.
Because he's like, ooh, no one has to know I'm in this giant castle all alone with Frank. Ugh. And that's kind of how it was for me. I remember like after graduating high school, there was like a slew of people who came out and they're like, oh yeah, by the way, I had a crush on you. I was like, why didn't you tell me this during high school when I was getting picked on and bullied? And they're like, oh, well, I was part of the preppy crowd and da, da, da. I'm like, so I wasn't allowed. You just fetishized about me, and now that we're out of the school, you can. They're like, well, no. I was like, gotcha. But hey, lesson learned, people. Just like Dr. Frankenfurter, we rock your world.
Exactly.
So again, for people like me who have no idea, what's the difference between goth, punk? Wait, what's the other one you guys mentioned?
Emo.
Emo. Yeah.
I always had like go back to South Park. I'm like, just go back to South Park and watch the Goth Kids episodes.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you don't understand. We drink coffee because we hate our lives, and then emos want to hate their lives because of it's like the stupidest shit. We're all like Dylan said, we're all cousins basically. You're just a little different.
I think it goes back like music, like the music styles are very different. So like if you listen to like goth music, it's very different than the emo music. I mean, emo and punk I feel like are a little closer, but like they're still pretty distinctive like music genres, and like each one has its own all sorts of subgenres. So I think that, but like it's all counterculture. It's all about like being different and kind of like a rejection of like the popular stuff. So we're kind of contrarian little bitches sometimes, but
oh my gosh, some of my favorite music is Real Big Fish because they're ska punk.
Oh,
and I love it.
I love a good ska. Ska's like how like it's like punk music, but there's like horns involved, so it sounds very much like I don't know. I consider it like video game music almost.
One of my favorite things going to concerts for Real Big Fish, at least, because they literally have a song called "In the Pit," and I just mosh out to that song. It's like, when I'm in the pit, I'm gonna punch and kick. Like, it's just great.
I love it.
I think part of it is why this whole like worlds was sort of like not necessarily not available to me, but I've never been that interested in music. I'm like I listen to music and I enjoy what I enjoy, but it I never went sort of like too far into it, or like I like just music is beep and boops to me. But I think from what you guys are saying, it sounds like very much like the feeling that I get when I go to like a convention, like a geek sort of like convention, because it's sort of like this sense of familiarity, like everybody knows about what you're talking about, everybody's dressed kind of like you, even if it's like a random stranger, you have some sort of like connection already. And everyone is like really supportive or geeks out, and there's like so many compliments that fly left and right, which is really sad to me, because then like I kind of get like convention blues afterwards, because then I go back to reality and everybody sucks.
It's very true. It's very true. But then think of it as an extension for us, so to say, like it's because we're already against like normal, like you could go out how you're dressed right now, Liz, and like no one bats an eye, but like if I go out in my goth apparel, they kind of look at me like so
you know what's funny though? I am wearing all black today. Does that count? Am I goth enough?
No? You're adorable, dear, and I love you.
See, the punks though, the punks can throw down about who's punk enough. I recently made a post on Facebook that was like, wait, is liking Nickelback punk?
Oh my god.
I think it is.
Oh,
Tier list. Can you make
so
a tier list
I
of who
do.
is the best?
I will
Go ahead.
do several tier lists for Twitch and YouTube at some point where I'm just talking, just
Ooh,
like,
yeah.
and I cannot wait to get canceled.
No. That's how you get more
oh,
views.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, it would be funny to me. So
Yeah.
do it. Yeah.
all right. So another thing too, I wanted to talk about like the sexuality aspect of this because the whole premise is first off we start with a wedding and then we go on to like Brad and Janet, they're engaged, and then we go to Frankenfurter creating this man as his sex toy, basically, and
Yes.
then all of his failed sex toys, basically, and then he like goes and molests Brad and Janet. Like it's all this underlying sexuality.
Yep.
So uh, it's I'm poly, um, or I've always believed in poly as long
Scandalous.
as like what?
I said scandalous.
As long as you're very open and honest and everything. Like I have someone I'm seeing right now and there's no other person in the relationship, but like been very open with them, be like, "Hey, I sometimes I miss being with a woman. That what if I were to bring that in?" But it's like always very open and honest and communicative. It's never just like, "Oh, let me sneak off," and that's
What
how
what
it's.
helped you get to the point where you can like discuss it? Not I was gonna say live, but we're not live. But close enough. Because I feel like a lot of people are kind of like wanting to know more, but again, it becomes taboo, or like they don't want to like say anything, or even ask questions about how to like create sort of like a safer relationship or relationships because the fear of judgment. So how did you guys get to the point where you can openly discuss this?
I For me personally, I've always been like this. I think it started with when I was a kid ambassador, like representative for the Tourette Syndrome Association,
Mm,
because I'm already I mean, I obviously had no qualms when I'm looking like Reagan from The Exorcist ticking down the street and then representing Tourette's. You know, that's nothing compared to just being like, oh yeah, I like sex.
mm,
So it's like I already had an extreme, and like
mhm,
sex was a step down from that. Honestly,
mhm,
um, but I've always, and then I've also know like sex. For me, I'm very sexual. I am a Frankenfurter. Uh, not gonna lie. Um, and I know, like, with certain people that they're like, "Hope you think I would talk about sex a lot?" I was like, "Sorry, it's just me." Um, so I know, like, I'm personally not like the norm already. Um, but I also have had a lot of people come up to me feel safe with talking about it to me because I am so just very open and blunt about it. They might not talk to others, but I've had like certain like especially guy friends come up and he's like, "Well, I thought about this," and I was like, "Well, do you think about that or do you want that?" They're like, "No, I don't want that." And I was like, "Okay, well, you don't want that. That's cool, but at least you talked about it, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, I've never talked about this before." And I was like,
mhm,
"Good." You know, Even if you did confirm that you're hetero, at least you talked about confirming you're hetero. Like some people don't get that opportunity.
mhm,
You
mhm.
know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I think.
exactly what I'm talking about. We're like, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
Oh, I mean,
let
I
the
think
expert talk, Liz.
like when I think about like being so openly polyamorous, right? I think I would take your question and spin it a little bit. So this is not pointed directly at you, but I think like why are we in society more comfortable talking about the fact that I need to feel like I own someone in a relationship and they aren't allowed to do anything else outside of that? Why is that the norm and not free sharing of love? Because like, I think it's wild to when someone's like, I am monogamous and I could never, ever even think about sharing my partner. I'm like, that's weird to me. Like, that's concerning to me. Um,
Wait, I'm playing devil's advocate. Don't hate me. No, this is about me. This is about you. You guys are different. Why are you different?
see,
Because
exactly.
that's always what I hear, right? And then
Yeah.
I'm like, so? Like what? So who cares? Like let them live their life and it's fine,
Yeah.
right? Again, as long as it's sort of like this consensual thing and there is like that healthy relationship between the partner or
Yeah.
partners. Yeah.
It comes down to communication, and the biggest thing I would say is, like, I've been involved in thruples before where I was like the third, and like but I knew my like place, you know.
Mhm,
They were very like, hey, we have a kid. We don't want you to be around the kid. With us, you can do whatever the hell you want, but like until you've reached this peak in our point, don't be. I was like, you know what? I respect that. Cool. Kid doesn't
mhm,
need to know I'm a thing. You
mhm.
know, they're a kid. Um, but then there's also things that I would say. I think it's also because it's very deep rooted in society. Like think of the morality rate, the morality, Jesus. Well, yeah, morality of the mortality rates way back when marriage was a thing. Like I don't know, average age was 30, so I'd be long dead by now.
Mm.
Uh, and of course, monogamy was till death do you part because death was 7 years.
Yeah.
Um, cool. And half that time they were raising 20 kids to work on the farm. Cool.
Marriage started at
They were
12.
too busy to right. I was like, they're too busy to go out flaunting it because they're birthing their 20th child to go plow the fields and get the chickens. Like, so it starts from more of a primal necessity. It was started as a primal thing, went to necessity, went to financial, and then now we're starting to get back to primal again, I feel. Because sex is a primal thing. Like the whole Frankenfurter, like when he made Rocky, Rocky was very like basic. He was primal. He literally was
Oh, yes.
primal. And because sex is a primal thing, I don't know. What that's my 2 cents. What about you?
I mean,
Yes.
I think the fun part is like going through grad school and realizing like, okay, so I'm supposed to talk to someone about every aspect of their life, but somehow the conversation dies off at sex. Like that's where
Mm.
that's uncomfortable to talk about. But I can talk to someone
You
about the
said the
deepest
word.
what? What?
Sex.
Sex.
Oh, yeah.
Scandalous.
Yeah. Like I
Well,
don't my neurodivergent brain was like this doesn't make any sense. Why is that now the part that I don't get to ask and help people with? So then
Or
this
especially how we have to filter ourselves, like even on social media. I know during the charity we did a charity stream for Psychology for Geeks, which I'm chair of the board and Liz is the founder. Check us out, love us. We're doing a charity stream, and Dylan here, he was like, oh, and I'll talk about sex, but instead of writing sex, he wrote SEGGS.
yep.
And I
oh
get
yes.
why and I was like, wait, the first thing is I was like, why do we have to filter ourselves with this? This is so dumb. We have to filter ourselves. But the second where my neurodivergent brain went was, ooh, spicy eggs. I want sriracha eggs. I'm gonna make some hard-boiled eggs and put sriracha on them. And I was like, why are you talking about eggs? And then he's like, no, sex. And I was like, oh, that makes more sense. Thank you.
You know, I think because I was talking to my brother about like why people make such a big deal, right? Because again, I just didn't understand why it was so bad for people to dress in like a specific way or to, to want to be a different gender or feel like they're a different gender or like want multiple partners or whatever. I'm like, so like it's not like they're like coming after you specifically, right? And then I just started realizing that like a lot of the cartoons that we grew up with, like we have so many examples of like this happening in some way or another. So to me, in my head, it was normal, right? Like it
Yeah,
just
even as
it
early
yeah.
as like Bugs Bunny, like and cross-dressing and kissing other guys and things like that, or but you could even take it further back. We were talking about, because Rocky Horror started as a stage production, and in the early years, women never set foot in the theater. Every single role, man or woman, was done by a man. whether it
Mhm.
was European or Japanese or whatever, it was all done by men. So it's like you're already dressing up in drag.
Yep.
So how is it fine there but not in a different context when it gets like sexual? It's always fascinated me how they like that harsh line was like
Mm.
created. That's just me. I just
Yeah, like we all got quiet because like, yeah, we just all agree. We just all agree that this shouldn't be a thing.
Liz, that's when you're gonna be like, no, I disagree because flowers. I don't know.
I had nothing. I was trying to play like devil's advocate because usually those are the things that I see online or hear people say, and then I I just get really upset. It's just like, ugh. And I cannot imagine what it's like for you guys to actually like experience this firsthand, right? Or even through the internet. It's still hurtful and harmful.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and
okay,
even
so quick
even
question.
just talking
Go
about
ahead.
it in here, even though like that's my areas of expertise, like it's always that like, well, who's gonna cancel me or who's gonna report me erroneously to the board or all these other things because like who knows?
Mhm.
Somebody could be ugly and like say whatever. And it's
Well,
a real risk.
Dylan, you are protected because I don't know if you know my background, but
Oh,
I
we
I
got
um I I was a crime scene cleaner. So you are protected by me if
I was gonna
not
say like yeah. I was like,
but
okay, yeah, I got your back, but I'm just gonna stand there really because I'll be like, I don't know what to do. What do I do? Who do we call?
so
Help!
if I need to get out my old equipment, I will get out my old equipment.
Heard.
So
But sorry, Liz, I cut you off.
no, she
I
needs
was
it.
just
She
being
needs a
funny.
balance. She needs a balance
Yeah,
of being cut off herself since she cuts us off.
you're good. You're good. Um,
Also,
okay.
shout out to Reaper Clean, who's also very pro LGBTQ. They're a crime scene and biohazard remediation cleanup in California, run by my girl Amber. Love her. Did an interview with her in a previous episode. Go check that out after this one. Um, but if you also need a safe space, Reaper Clean is on the scene.
Oh yeah, that was actually really interesting because I learned a lot about like what career entails. But actually, Dr. Punk, I have a question. If I am a student, a mental health student of some kind at this point, and I am really interested in
That's not where my
learning
head
more.
went.
What?
That's not where my head went. Please continue.
Oh, jeez! I said it was the normal one here. uh,
It's always
wait,
the
and if I
normal
was
ones.
interested, um,
Like if I was a
shoot,
student,
dang it.
you were the naughty teacher.
No. But I was a student and I wanted to learn more about like how to like work with the LGBTQ plus or transgender population or talk about sex and be comfortable with it or have more knowledge. Like what would be the route? One for like a mental health like student like psychologist or whatever, and two just someone sort of like in the community who wants to provide a safe space for people.
So I would say if you're a student, reaching out to whatever program you're in and seeing what opportunities they already have are like could line up. Because some might not advertise it, but they may have like some connections. If they don't,
Yeah.
then finding people like me on social media and finding ways to get mentored in other ways. So I mentor students that are not in the program that I work in. I have a student in Canada too. So like, and even if like right now I don't have enough free time to mentor another student, but I have like several people in my back pocket that I can just send some emails to. I'm always happy for that or connecting to local resources like getting out into the community of like go to drag shows, see who's out there, just get
Mhm.
like so a big part of when I've taught classes about doing LGBTQ plus affirming care is about getting out to the community, going to spaces, understanding our culture just in general, even if you're straight, leads to more understanding. And a lot of the research shows that in order to like build cultural competence, part of it is contact with whatever culture you're wanting to work with. So that would be the other thing. So like if you need an excuse to go to a drag show, you're learning queer affirming care by going going to a drag show. And the general person as well. So like that would be my go-to would be go out, support queer spaces, support queer businesses, um, and um, yeah, and learn directly from us, not from some random people about us. We're
Yes.
not like zoo exhibits.
So like, how do I ask? Because I think one of the things that I heard slash me myself experience is like how to ask questions in a way that it's like not insulting, right? Because sometimes we just are ignorant, don't know how to ask a question, so we're like, okay, maybe I just shouldn't say anything. Any recommendations for that?
Honestly, like, you could say that with any race, culture, subculture, whatever, there's gonna be ignorant people, but as long as for me, um, like, for me, when it comes to, like, Tourette's and things, people are like, I don't know anything. What's this?" Because like, the big thing with, like, Tourette's would be, "Oh, so is that thing where you cuss all the time?" Like, yes, I have no filter and I cuss like a sailor, but the Tourette's isn't why. I just have a foul mouth. Um, my tics are different, but if you come off as like, "Hey, I don't understand," or like, "Can you please explain?" Like, come on as like a learning thing and not just like, "Oh," like, respect it. Because there's been people who are like, "Oh," they like made jokes about certain things like, "Oh, that's blah blah blah." And like, I'm like, "No, I get that you don't understand, but don't joke about it." Like, it's similar to the thing like you can't break any rules until you know all the rules. uh Say like with like learning a language, like, oh, you can't mess up the grammar or make funky sentences until you understand all the parts of speech, the proper syntax of things. Similar thing, just learn about it. Just say, hey, I don't know, I don't understand. I know I've been like that to people, like, hey, I don't get this, can you explain that? And that's how I'll try and approach it, like, hey, I don't get it, can you tell me? And you could be very vague. If you just are kind of like vague about it too, like, the more that they'll open up to you and the more they'll tell you, and you'll get a better general answer as well.
So I'm a big
I
fan
did.
of telling people,
Oh, go ahead.
oh, I'm a big
Go.
fan
No,
of
no, no.
telling
I
people
have
like
nothing important to say. Go ahead.
like there's so many things you can Google, and so if you can Google it, it's better to just Google it, because especially in the current socio-political climate, we
True.
queer and trans people are exhausted right now, and so we don't really know if Liz, if you message me and you're like, hey, I have some questions, I know like you're coming from a place of wanting to know and you're educating yourself, but
Mm.
general people aren't going to know. So if you can Google it, just do that. And find people instead of like going to a drag show and just like asking random people around you who may be going there to escape, to have a fun time. Finding the experts that are willing to be in that spotlight, or at least willing to exert that emotional labor. So like when I put myself on Instagram or I'm doing something, it's because I've signed up as like an expert, and even though I don't speak for anyone else in the community, like I'm there to help in that regard. And also money talks. So like if you really want to like have something, like pay for the emotional labor, because it is labor to answer a bunch of questions. Um, so
And,
yeah.
and I think what's important to mention too is that just because the person's bisexual or gay or whatever, they are not there to educate you. That's not their
Yep.
job, right?
Yep.
So
Hmm.
it's okay if you go out to them and ask and you're very kind about it, and it's okay for them to say no. Like you can
Yep.
Google it or go find someone else to ask.
I guess
Yeah.
that would be something too. It'd be it's one thing to like have it be brought up in conversation. Like if you're already like talking with them, but don't just like beeline and be like, "Hey, tell me this." Like, no,
Yes.
don't do that. It's
Mhm.
one thing if you're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" You're striking up a conversation. If down the line in the conversation, then you have a question. Okay, but yeah, that's what I can say.
I'm trying to like, how can we
So
bring this
what's your
back to Rocky
what
Horror?
Oh, I have a question. What is the one song that you like out of all the ones in the
One.
soundtrack? Just one, that's all you get? Quickie,
Hold
quickie, you
on.
don't have
Ooh.
time to think. Go, 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 go.
Oh, I can't look them
What's your
up.
answer? No.
I would say Toucha Toucha.
What's your Yes, yes, that's a great one. Oh, I don't want to. As much as I love time work, I don't want to be basic and say time work.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, honestly, I kind of love "Damn It, Janet."
That's a good one too.
Yeah, I kind of really love "Damn It, Janet." Just because he's like, "Damn it, Janet," and then you're like, "Oh, he's mad." And he's like, "I love you," and I'm like, "Oh, it's sweet now."
And also
You know- you know-
the opener,
Just
science fiction,
sorry, sorry. Oh, dang, I
is one of my
can't.
faves.
You go, you go.
Oh, sorry.
What just happened? You two were talking at the same time.
Oh
um
well.
Okay, wait, I'll go first. So that just sort of reminded me of like me earlier, because like about a year ago, my brother and I had this conversation of like somebody said thank you, or said have a nice day to us, and like a bunch of other things, right? And then I said, oh yeah, and you have a nice day too, right? And then or thank you, you too, is what I said. And then my brother, he started saying likewise, right? And then I was like, likewise, and he said like, yeah, it means this. I was like, I know what it means, but like it's just like one word or whatever, right? And then like it just we started like play arguing about like, my thing was better than his or whatever. And then like earlier today, I was responding to someone's text and I said likewise, and I was like, damn it, David. And then he said like, what? And I was like, it's because of you that I'm saying likewise now. I'm not supposed to. But yeah, that reminded me of that. So I totally understand that song that you're talking about. That's what I meant. Full circle.
Totally.
ADHD brain, see connections. There's a reason why I said this story.
It's there. The logic's there.
I'm not lost, but cool.
It's okay. It's for it's secret code for other ADHDers out there.
Yeah.
Please put me
I
up.
have ADHD and I'm even lost. I just have like 5 other things.
Well, see, you know how you guys were saying that like goths, punks, and I forgot the other ones, or emos, they're kind of like, all cousins of like the same family. Same thing, neurodivergent, we're all cousins, just not exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
All right.
overlap between that and the alt community is damn near some stacks of pancakes.
So I want to know what it is. I How do you feel about them going like the hometown being Transylvania?
I don't know. I've never been asked that. I don't know.
Because
I
it,
don't know.
it works on many different levels because you have like Transylvania is like the home of like, oh, the vampires and the goth and like, oh, it's the spooky creepy stuff, but then they're definitely playing on trans.
Yeah.
So like I've always wondered like is that really like, you know, I get it's like I get what you're going for, but you're really beating a dead horse now like
Yeah. I mean, I prefer the idea, like, because 'cause they're from, like, what, the galaxy, Transylvania, which to me is, like, just a beautiful idea of, like, just a whole place of freaks. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
just weirdo freaks. That would be nice.
Yeah, okay. So if you'd make it if you switch it like that, I could totally
Yeah.
see it.
But I
Me,
could totally
I would
s
love the creepy, spooky Transylvania.
yeah,
Well,
but
in
I could totally see the,
just
like, the negative view of trans people in general at the time leaking into that of like, "Oh, like, we're gonna capitalize on it," but at the same time, like, it was such a celebratory movie that I don't know,
Mhm.
like, I don't know.
Just
And I'm
it's
not from
fine
the
now. Yeah,
'70s, so I have no idea.
yeah, because I was gonna say, I know that's been a big issue with like, it's yes, it's 50 years old. It's dated,
Yeah.
and there's been people like, oh, well, this isn't PC now, and I'm like, well, it's 50 years old. We're not gonna go back and change a classic. Like, I'm sorry. Um, so it's one of those things that's constantly brought up. It's like, yes, it's iconic. It's laid the foundation, but then people are like, well, I'm like, 50 years, dude. 50 years.
Yeah.
man,
And
I was gonna say something cool and I forgot
if they're
now.
not
Thanks. You
trans,
took too long.
then to
Hope.
me
See what you did?
the convo doesn't matter.
Yes, thank you.
What? I think my
Liz,
internet is like mixing up. Like I couldn't hear anything.
good. That's
But
fine. You're fine.
uh,
Um, no, but I mean, I, we should probably be wrapping this up soon. So is there any other questions that you have, Liz? Like I said before, you wanted to talk about this film. This was your idea. Like Dylan and I jumped on board. We're like, yeah, we love this, and you're just like, oh, I have questions.
listen, I was hoping you guys could give me a sense of clarity as to what happened in the movie, but I think we're all sort of like on the same boat when it comes to understanding what's going on. Or am I not understanding this
Brad
correctly?
and Janet go to see Dr. Scott. Car dies at Frankenfurter's house. Frankenfurter is from Transylvania, which is a far off
Space
land
trans-
space.
Space.
He's a hedonist, as he's a hedonist. He wants to make the perfect man to please his hedonistic ideals. Conservative Brad and Janet don't know what the fuck is going on.
None.
Gets turned by Dr. Frankenfurter and opens up their sexuality, and Brad's life is forever changed.
Queer.
Yeah. Um, finds Frankenfurter's past failed man toy experiments. And also, you see the slew of hearts he's broken along the way.
Yeah.
And then finally, his hedonistic ideals get too much. So Riff Raff and Magenta are like, all right, nah, we allowed a lot, but we need to wrap this shit up. And he's like, no, let me be. And it's a metaphor for like, oh, you can't be in this community. It's too much. And we're just like, nah, bro, like, we're not trying to hurt people. We want to be ourselves. And so he gets sent off, and Brad and Janet are now left for the better of knowing him, because now they're like, hey, this isn't as creepy as we thought.
Do they stay
And
together?
yeah. So there's a spiritual sequel to Rocky Horror, which is called
Spiritual sequel. I like that.
it's not like a direct sequel or
Mm.
whatever. Well, god damn it, what was it called? It's shock. shock treatment. It is shock treatment. And they're married. And so Brad and Janet make a recurrence in that movie. Unfortunately played by different actors, but they make a recurrence in the movie and they're married. So nothing to do with Rocky or any of that. It just happens back in their town of Denton, and they're married, and it's this whole thing. Like I said, it's a spiritual sequel. Not so. Does that break it down at all for you, Liz?
You know what? Like as you were explaining it, I was like, wait, now I remember. I think because my ADHD brain, and I think I have this thing where like if there's too many things happening at once, especially like visually, I'm lost. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. And again, that's why I have the overall. I loved it, but again, I don't know why I love it because there was so much going on. And like again, like the props and it was funny, and like some weird people were like gyrating their hips in a weird way, and I was like, "What's going on here? It's funny."
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I I think English is my second language, so like it takes me a while longer for me to understand like the lyrics of songs. So
Mm.
like again, they're just kind of beeps and boops until like I listen to it for like the 10th time. Um, so I think if like I were to like separate them into like different elements, then it all makes sense. Yes, but all put together, my brain's not like, yeah, me likey, but I have no idea what's happening.
So my breakdown helped then.
Yes, thank you very
Okay,
much.
good.
See,
Okay.
I could definitely get that because like the ending is a little chaotic in terms of like they don't explain a whole lot, and then it's like all of a sudden like now there's aliens and like things are happening. But I've
Yeah.
always seen the pool scene as an orgy. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh, they're like this is their version of everyone having an orgy, and then the aliens come in and they're like, oh no, yeah, no, we're not doing this, and then they kill they kill Frankenfurter.
Too much. Too much.
Yeah,
Let you
exactly.
have your man toys, but you can't
Yeah,
have an orgy.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, Rocky Horror, 50-year anniversary. We love it. Cult classic.
Absolute beauty.
Yay!
So, any last words, Dylan, before our punk therapist? Any last words?
No, I don't know. I didn't prepare any closing
Wait,
remarks.
wait a minute, wait a minute, wait. I have an idea. I have an idea. Okay, listen. So usually when I end, Psychology for Geeks has a slogan, whatever, right? Which is reframe and reenchant your life, right? I think you should have a cool one. Like that's punk. Yeah. I don't know what
Like
it would
dis
be, but that would be your homework until like the next time we meet.
li-
Okay?
like what's on all of my media, which is dismantle wait, it's empowering identities, dismantling norms.
Yeah, there you go. Great.
That's it.
There you go. So we will definitely have all of your information posted in the video, but if you'd like to go ahead and tell us where we could find you, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so pretty much on everything. So Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, I am the Punk Psychologist, all one word, no underscores or anything. My website is thepunkpsychologist.com. For anyone listening, I am able to see people virtually for therapy in 40 plus states and counting. I'm licensed in Mississippi, but I'm able to see people virtually. My website has a link for that. And just because you watch this doesn't mean that I can't also see you for therapy. I don't know who you are at all. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. Mm.
Oh
Beautiful.
wait. This is probably gonna come out before the workshop we're doing. So if you would like
What
to invite
I
people
workshop?
don't
to
know, maybe.
in
What workshop? I don't know
May,
what you.
wait,
No, I'm kidding.
March.
I'm kidding. What is March 15th? I'm doing a Pay What You Can workshop with Psychology for Geeks, where I will be doing an hour of like workshopping, just like affirming, so queer and trans affirming practices that is open to whoever wants to come. So it's not only just for therapists. And it's a pay what you can. And then after that, it'll be a question and answer sort of format. So pay what you can, support Psychology for Geeks, and then also learn some ways to support trans and queer folks in such a challenging time.
Yeah, and I'm gonna like follow that like super serious, great like invitation by saying you almost gave me a heart attack because I was like, I know nothing. People do not want to hear from me. What am I supposed to do now? I've been inviting people to this workshop. You don't shut up. Who's gonna do it? Not me. I can't. So yes, good thing you remember it's on your calendar, right? Like you're
Oh yeah,
coming.
for sure. I was just kidding.
Okay, great.
Oh my gosh.
Because
And
I'll just be like, hold on, let me just Google this. It
and
will
on
not be
that
great.
note, I think we're gonna leave before Dr. Gremlin has another heart attack.
Yes,
Um,
please.
So thank you for coming and talking about Rocky Horror with us and sexuality and all the above. It's been fantastic. I know I get the special pleasure of messaging you whenever I want, and we can
Yeah,
geek out whenever.
for
But
sure.
if you guys want more of Dylan, please leave in the comments, like, subscribe, comment, tell us that you want more because we all want more. Uh, but yeah, otherwise, thank you for letting me be your Sherpa into the mind brain. And I will say, have a good night and love fishnets.
Bye.
Bye.